I sat in my lawyer's office staring at the paper in my hands. It was a lawsuit. From my own mother. She was suing me for half of my house. The house I bought with 8 years of saving every paycheck, every bonus, every tax return. The woman who gave birth to me now wanted to take what I built with my own 2 hands. I remembered her words from last month. A son should share everything with his mother. But what she did not know was that I had been preparing for this moment. This is a story about love betrayal, and the day I had to prove my own mother wrong in court. Before I tell you how I proved my own mother wrong in court, let me know where you are watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe, because what happened next will show you that blood does not always mean blind loyalty. Let me take you back to where this nightmare started. I am Jonathan, 30 years old software engineer in Seattle, single, and until recently I thought I had a decent relationship with my mother. I grew up learning to stand on my own feet early. My dad passed away when I was 12, leaving Mom to raise me alone. Or at least that was how it started. When I turned 15, she remarried a man named Gary. From that point on, her attention shifted to her new life. Her new husband and I became something of an afterthought. I do not blame her for moving on. People deserve happiness. But it meant I had to grow up fast. At 16, I got my first job washing dishes at a diner downtown. At 17, I was working 2 jobs to save for college. I applied for every scholarship I could find, stayed up late, writing essays, and somehow managed to get a full ride to the University of Washington for computer science. My mother did not pay a single dollar of my tuition. I worked part-time, through all 4 years, lived in the cheapest dorm, ate ramen, more nights than I can count, and graduated debt-free. After graduation, I landed a solid job at a tech company. I was not making 6 figures right away, but I was comfortable. More importantly, I was disciplined. While my coworkers bought new cars and took expensive vacations, I lived in a studio apartment, drove a 15-year-old Honda, and saved. Every month, I transferred half my paycheck into a savings account. For 8 years, I did this. 8 years of saying no to things I wanted because I had a goal. I wanted to own a home, not rent. Own. In 2022, I finally had enough. $80,000 for a down payment. I found a beautiful 3-bedroom house in the suburbs of Seattle, listed at $420,000. The day I got the keys, I stood in the empty living room and cried. It was mine. No landlord. No rent increases. Mine. I had done it entirely on my own. My relationship with my mother during those years was minimal. We called each other on birthdays and Christmas. She would ask how work was going. I would say fine, and that was about it. She was busy with Gary and their life. I was busy building mine. It was not hostile. It was just distant. Then about 2 months after I bought the house, things started to change. She began calling more frequently. At first I thought maybe she wanted to reconnect. She would ask about the house, how many bedrooms, what the neighborhood was like, whether I was happy. She complimented my hard work, said she was proud of me. It felt nice. I thought maybe we were finally going to have a real relationship again. Then she asked to visit. She showed up one Saturday afternoon without much warning. I had texted her my address weeks earlier, but I did not expect her to just appear. She brought Gary with her. They walked through every room slowly, like they were appraising the place. Gary kept nodding, making comments about the crown molding the hardwood floors the size of the backyard. At one point he turned to my mother and said, "Nice investment, Barbara." My mother smiled and said something that made my stomach turn. A mother's sacrifice deserves something in return. I laughed it off at the time. I thought she was joking. Maybe she meant I should visit her more often, or call more frequently. I did not realize she meant something far more literal. A week later she called me. Her tone was different, more serious. She said she had been thinking and she believed it was only fair that we put the house in both our names. You and me, Jonathan. We are family. It makes sense. I was confused. Mom, why would I do that? I bought this house. With my money. I raised you, she said. I fed you, clothed. You gave you a home for 18 years. You owe me this. I felt a chill run down my spine. Mom, I worked for this house. I saved every dollar myself. She got angry. Her voice went cold. You are being selfish. A good son would not treat his mother this way. Then she hung up. For the next week my phone exploded. Text messages, emails, voicemails. She sent me dozens of messages every day, each one more aggressive than the last. She called me ungrateful. She listed everything she claimed she had done for me, most of which were exaggerations or outright lies. She said she sacrificed her entire life for me, and now I was abandoning her. Gary started messaging me too. His texts were more threatening. You owe your mother respect and compensation. Do the right thing. I blocked his number, but I could not block my mother. Not yet. 2 weeks later, she showed up at my house again. This time she was not alone. She brought a lawyer with her. A man in a cheap suit carrying a briefcase. His name was Roger Davis. They stood on my porch, and my mother looked at me with an expression I had never seen before. It was not sadness. It was not anger. It was entitlement. Jonathan, she said, this is my lawyer. I have every right to a share of this house, and if you will not give it to me willingly, we will let the court decide. Roger handed me a piece of paper. It was a formal demand letter. She was asking for 50% ownership of my house. The letter claimed that as the mother who raised me, she deserved compensation for her years of sacrifice. It claimed there was an implied agreement that I would share my assets with her. I looked at her. Mom, you cannot be serious. I am very serious, she said. You have 1 week to transfer the title, or we file a lawsuit. Gary stood behind her, arms crossed, smirking. I felt my hands shaking, not from fear, from anger, from heartbreak. I looked my mother in the eyes and said, Mom, I love you, but this house is mine. I worked for it. I earned it. You did not contribute a single dollar. She stepped closer. The court will see it differently. I am your mother. I gave you life. That means something. I took a deep breath. If you want to take me to court, go ahead. But you are going to lose. She smiled. We will see about that. They turned and walked away. I stood there on my porch watching my mother leave, and I felt something break inside me. The woman who gave birth to me, who I had spent my whole life trying to make proud, was now treating me like a business transaction. I went inside, sat down on my couch, and put my head in my hands. I did not cry. I just sat there numb. But underneath the numbness, something else was forming. Determination. If she wanted a fight, I was going to give her one. 30 days later, I received a certified letter. It was a summons to appear in court. My mother had filed the lawsuit. I opened the envelope with shaking hands and read the complaint. She was suing me for unjust enrichment and failure to compensate parental investment. She was demanding 50% of the value of my house, plus legal fees. I read through the claims. She stated that she had given me $30,000 for college tuition in 2015. She claimed she had contributed $20,000 toward my down payment on the house. She insisted there had been a verbal agreement that the house would be in both our names. Every single word was a lie. I sat there staring at the papers, and I felt the anger shift into something colder, something sharper. She was not just asking for something she thought she deserved. She was lying, under oath, in a legal document, about me. I called a lawyer the next morning. Her name was Amy Rodriguez. She was a family law attorney in her mid-40s with a reputation for being tough but fair. I sat across from her in her office and told her everything. I showed her the lawsuit. I explained my history with my mother. I told her about Gary, about the sudden change in her behavior, about the lies in the complaint. Amy listened carefully. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and said, "This is more common than you think. Family members suing each other over property. But here is the good news. If what you are telling me is true, and you have documentation, This case will not last long. I have documentation for everything I said. Good. Then let's build your defense. Over the next 2 weeks, I gathered everything. Bank statements going back 8 years, showing every deposit, every transfer, every dollar I saved. My college financial aid documents proving I had a full scholarship. My employment records from every job I worked during school. The mortgage documents showing that the entire down payment came from my personal savings account. The wire transfer receipts. The loan paperwork, with only my name on it. I also pulled every text message, every email I had ever exchanged with my mother about buying the house. Not once did she mention giving me money. Not once did we discuss shared ownership. Amy reviewed everything and smiled. Jonathan, your mother picked the wrong person to lie about. You have a paper trail that would make an accountant weep with joy. But then she found something else. She ran a background check on Gary just to see if there was any relevant history. What she found made everything click into place. Gary had gambling debts, a lot of them. Over $150,000 owed to various creditors. There were court judgments against him, liens, collection notices. He was drowning. This is not about a mother wanting to reconnect with her son, Amy said. This is about money. They need cash, and they think they can get it from you. I felt sick. My mother was not doing this because she believed she deserved it. She was doing it because her husband was in debt, and I was an easy target. Amy laid out our strategy. We are going to let her testify first. Let her tell her lies under oath. Then we are going to dismantle every single one of them with documentation. By the time we are done, the judge will see exactly who is telling the truth. We prepared for weeks. Amy found witnesses, my old college professor who could confirm my scholarship, my former boss who could confirm I worked full-time while studying, the bank officer who processed my down payment and could testify that every dollar came from my account. We were ready, but the hardest part was not the preparation. It was the emotional toll. Family members started calling me. Cousins, aunts, uncles. My mother had told them her version of the story. In her version, I had promised to take care of her, then kicked her out of my house and refused to let her live with me. She painted herself as a victim, and me as a cruel, ungrateful son. Some of them believed her. They called to yell at me, to tell me I should be ashamed. I tried to explain, but most did not want to hear it. They had already decided I was the villain. My mother also went public on social media. She posted long, emotional messages on Facebook about how her son had abandoned her, how she had sacrificed everything and received nothing in return. Hundreds of people commented, calling me terrible names, saying I should be ashamed. I did not respond. Amy told me not to engage. Let her dig her hole deeper, she said. The truth will come out in court. The night before the trial, I could not sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about my childhood. I remembered the good times before my dad died. I remembered my mother reading to me before bed, making me pancakes on Saturday mornings, cheering at my soccer games. That woman felt like a stranger now. I wondered if we would ever speak again after this. I wondered if I was doing the right thing. Then I thought about the lies she had told, the manipulation, the greed, and I knew I had no choice. Amy called me at 11 p.m. Get some rest. Tomorrow the truth wins. The courtroom was in King County. It was a Tuesday morning, and the room was smaller than I expected. The walls were pale wood paneling, and the fluorescent lights gave everything a sterile feel. Judge Helen Morrison sat at the bench. She was a woman in her late 50s, with silver hair pulled back in a tight bun and sharp eyes that missed nothing. On one side of the room sat my mother Barbara, next to Gary, and their lawyer Roger Davis. On the other side sat Amy and me. There were a handful of people in the gallery, family members my mother had invited to watch, expecting to see me humiliated. The bailiff called the court to order. Judge Morrison looked down at the papers in front of her, then at both sides. This is a civil claim brought by Barbara Whitman against her son Jonathan Whitman regarding property ownership. Mr. Whitman. Davis, you may present your opening statement. Roger Davis stood up. He was a thin man with slicked back hair and a voice that dripped with false sympathy. He walked to the center of the room and began, "Your Honor, this case is about a mother's love and a son's betrayal. Barbara Whitman spent her entire adult life raising Jonathan. She sacrificed her career, her time, her energy, all to give him a good life. When he wanted to go to college, she gave him $30,000 to help pay for his education. When he wanted to buy a house, she contributed $20,000 toward his down payment. And in return, Jonathan promised his mother that they would share ownership of the home. It was a verbal agreement made in good faith between a mother and son. But now Jonathan has broken that promise. He has locked her out both literally and legally. My client is simply asking for what is rightfully hers, 50% ownership of a house that she helped him purchase." He sat down. I felt my jaw clench. Every word was a lie. Judge Morrison nodded. Miss Rodriguez Amy stood. She did not walk to the center. She stayed right where she was, looked at the judge, and spoke clearly. "Your Honor, this case is not about love. It is about greed. Mrs. Whitman did not contribute a single dollar to her son's education or his home. Every claim she has made is false, and we will prove it with bank records, tax documents, and witness testimony. What we have here is a woman who, after years of minimal contact with her son, suddenly decided she was entitled to half of his hard-earned property. This lawsuit is not about fairness. It is about money, and the evidence will make that abundantly clear." She sat down. Judge Morrison made a note, then looked at Roger. "Call your first witness." "I call Barbara Whitman to the stand." My mother stood up slowly. She was dressed in a simple blue dress, her hair styled neatly. She looked like the picture of a sweet, wronged mother. She walked to the witness stand, placed her hand on the Bible, and swore to tell the truth. Roger began his questions. He asked her to describe her relationship with me, how she raised me after my father died, how hard it was to be a single mother. She cried as she talked about the sacrifices she made. Then he asked about the money. "Mrs. Whitman, did you give your son financial support for his education?" "Yes," she said, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. "I gave him $30,000 in 2015 to help with college." "And how did you give him this money?" "Cash. I withdrew it from my savings and gave it to him directly." "Do you have a receipt or record of this transaction?" "No. He is my son. I trusted him. Family does not need receipts." Roger nodded sympathetically. "And did you contribute to the purchase of his house?" "Yes. I gave him $20,000 for the down payment in 2022. "And was there an agreement about ownership?" "Yes. We talked about it. He said we would put the house in both our names. That way I would always have a place to live, and he would have help with the mortgage." "And do you have this agreement in writing?" "No. It was a private conversation between a mother and son. I did not think I needed a contract with my own child." She looked at the judge with tears in her eyes. "I just want what was promised to me." Roger sat down. No further questions. Judge Morrison looked at Amy. Cross-examination. Amy stood up holding a folder. She walked toward the witness stand slowly. "Mrs. Whitman, you testified that you gave your son $30,000 in cash in 2015. Is that correct?" "Yes." "Can you tell me what month that was?" My mother hesitated. "I believe it was in the summer, June or July." Amy opened the folder. "Your Honor, I would like to submit Exhibit A. These are Mrs. Whitman's bank statements for the entire year of 2015. She handed copies to the judge and to Roger. My mother's face went pale. Amy continued, "Mrs. Whitman, according to these statements, your bank account never held more than $8,000 at any point in 2015. Where did the $30,000 come from?" My mother stammered. "I borrowed it from friends." "Which friends I do not remember. It was years ago. You do not remember who lent you $30,000. It was a long time ago." Amy nodded. Let's move on. You said you gave Jonathan $20,000 for his house down payment in 2022. Correct. Yes. Your Honor. Exhibit B. This is the wire transfer record for the down payment on Jonathan's house. As you can see, the entire $80,000 payment came from an account in Jonathan's name only. Not a single dollar came from Mrs. Whitman. She handed the document to the judge. My mother shifted in her seat. Mrs. Whitman, if you gave him $20,000, why does this record show that all $80,000 came from his account? He must have already paid me back. Paid you back when I do not know exactly. Do you have any record of him paying you back $20,000? No. So, you are claiming he paid you back $20,000 in cash with no record, no receipt, and no witnesses. My mother's voice was getting smaller. Yes. Amy paused, then asked Mrs. Whitman, do you have any text messages or emails with your son discussing this alleged agreement to share ownership of the house? No. We talked in person. Your Honor, Exhibit C. These are text message records between Mrs. Whitman and Jonathan, covering the 6 months before and after he purchased his home. In these messages they discuss the house, the neighborhood, the closing process. At no point does Mrs. Whitman mention giving him money contributing to the purchase or any agreement about shared ownership. Amy looked at my mother. Why would you not mention something so important in any of these conversations? My mother had no answer. She just sat there silent. Amy returned to her seat. No further questions. Judge Morrison looked at my mother. You may step down. My mother walked back to her seat. She would not look at me. Roger called no other witnesses. Then it was our turn. Amy called me to the stand. I swore to tell the truth and sat down. Amy asked me to describe my upbringing, my relationship with my mother, and how I paid for college. I explained everything calmly. I told the truth. I did not exaggerate. I did not make my mother out to be a monster. I just told the facts. Then Amy submitted my evidence. My scholarship letters showing full tuition coverage. My employment records from 3 different jobs I worked during college. My tax returns. My savings account statements showing 8 years of disciplined saving. She showed the mortgage documents, the deed with only my name, the loan paperwork with only my signature. Then she called witnesses. My college professor, Dr. Alan Hendricks, took the stand. He confirmed that I had a full merit scholarship and that to his knowledge I worked multiple jobs to support myself. My former manager, Susan Delgado, testified that I worked at her company for 6 years and that I was known for being frugal and saving aggressively. The bank officer who processed my mortgage, Patrick Nguyen, testified that the entire down payment came from my personal account and that no one else was involved in the transaction. Finally, Amy presented one last piece of evidence. Your Honor, we have discovered that Mrs. Whitman's husband, Gary, currently has over $150,000 in outstanding gambling debts. There are multiple judgments against him, and creditors are actively pursuing collection. We believe this lawsuit is not about family. It is about money. She submitted the court records. Judge Morrison reviewed them carefully. Roger stood up trying to salvage something. Your Honor, even if the financial claims are disputed, the principle remains. A mother who raised a child deserves some form of compensation. Amy did not even stand. She just spoke from her seat. Your Honor, raising a child is a legal and moral obligation. It is not a business transaction. Parents do not get to bill their children for the cost of raising them. Mrs. Whitman chose to have a child that came with responsibilities, not contracts. Judge Morrison nodded slowly. She looked at my mother, then at me, then down at the evidence in front of her. I have reviewed all the testimony and evidence presented today. It is clear to me that Mr. Jonathan Whitman purchased his home entirely with funds he earned and saved himself. There is no credible evidence that Mrs. Whitman contributed financially to either his education or his home purchase. There is no written agreement, and the alleged verbal agreement is not supported by any contemporaneous communication or documentation. Furthermore, the financial records directly contradict Mrs. Whitman's claims. This lawsuit is without merit. The case is dismissed. Mrs. Whitman is ordered to pay court costs and Mr. Whitman's legal fees. She struck her gavel. The sound echoed in the silent courtroom. My mother let out a sob. Gary put his arm around her, and they stood up and walked out quickly, not looking at anyone. I sat there, letting the reality sink in. I had won, but it did not feel like a victory. Outside the courthouse, Amy shook my hand. "You did great in there. I am sorry it had to come to this." "Thank you," I said. "For everything." She nodded and left. I stood on the steps watching people come and go. I saw my mother and Gary getting into their car across the street. For a moment I thought about walking over saying something, but what would I say? I went home. I walked through my house, the house that was now legally, unquestionably mine. I sat down in the living room and just breathed. The relief was there, but so was the sadness. I had protected what was mine, but I had lost my mother in the process. Maybe she was never really there to begin with. Maybe the version of her I loved was just a memory from childhood, but it still hurt. Over the next few days, a few family members called to apologize. They had heard about the trial, heard the truth. Some of them felt bad for believing my mother's lies, but others stayed silent. I realized I could not control what people thought of me. All I could do was live my truth. The first week after the trial was hard. I kept replaying everything in my mind, wondering if I could have handled it differently, wondering if there was a way to have both kept my house and kept my mother. But deep down I knew the answer. She had made her choice when she decided to lie and manipulate. I threw myself into work. I redecorated parts of the house. I painted the guest room. I built a bookshelf. Every small change felt like reclaiming the space, making it truly mine, without the shadow of her claim hanging over it. A month passed, then 2, then 3. I started going to a local hiking group on weekends. I met people who knew nothing about my family drama, people who just liked being outdoors and talking about normal things. It was refreshing. One woman, Diana, and I started talking more. She was kind, genuine, and when I eventually told her about what happened with my mother, she did not judge me. She just listened. 6 months after the trial, I got an email from my mother. It was short. "I am sorry for what I did." That was it. No explanation, no real apology for the lies, the hurt, the betrayal. Just 5 words. I did not reply right away. I needed time to think about what forgiveness would even look like. Did I want her back in my life? Could I trust her again? I did not have answers yet. A year later, I am still in my house. Diana and I are dating seriously now. She has been supportive and understanding, never pushing me to reconcile with my mother before I am ready. My life is quieter now, more peaceful. I have friends who care about me for who I am, not what I can give them. I still think about my mother sometimes. I wonder if she ever truly understood what she did wrong, or if she just regrets getting caught. I wonder if we will ever speak again. Part of me hopes we will. Part of me knows it might never happen. But I learned something important through all of this. Boundaries are not cruel. Protecting yourself is not selfish. Love does not mean letting people take advantage of you, even if they are family, especially if they are family. Sometimes the people who gave you life think they own your life, but they do not. You have every right to protect what you built with your own hands, your own sweat, your own sacrifice. I do not know if my mother and I will ever repair our relationship, but I know I made the right choice. Because loving someone does not mean letting them destroy you, and sometimes the hardest battles are the ones we fight with the people we love most. But those are also the battles that teach us who we truly are. I am Jonathan. I own my home. I own my choices. And I own my future. And that is enough. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family, even when it hurt? Have you ever been in a situation where doing the right thing cost you a relationship? Drop a comment below and share your story. And if this resonated with you, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this with someone who might need to hear it. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminds you that you are allowed to protect yourself even from the people you love. Take care of yourself out there, and remember that your worth is not determined by what others think you owe them.